Welcome to HOA Stories. When three men in fake uniforms marched up my driveway that morning, I knew two things instantly: they weren't real cops, and they'd picked the wrong house. It was a quiet Thursday in Maple Ridge Estates, the kind of neighborhood where lawn sprinklers sang before sunrise and people waved like everything was perfect. I'd moved here 6 months ago, a quiet cul-de-sac lined with trimmed hedges, pastel houses, and one too many HOA rules posted on bulletin boards. The kind of place that pretended to be peaceful, until you looked closer. I'd retired from field duty 3 years ago, or at least that's what my neighbors thought. To them, I was just Ethan Ross, a mild-mannered security consultant with an old Mustang and a dog named Scout. They didn't need to know that I still carried a badge, just not the one they imagined. That morning, the sun glared off my mailbox as a white SUV rolled to a stop in front of my house. The logo said, Maple Ridge Compliance Division, fancy words for what I assumed was another HOA threat about my non-standard mailbox paint. I didn't even flinch. Until the men stepped out. They wore dark tactical shirts with Velcro, police HOA patches, handcuffs on their belts, and radios that didn't even blink. One of them, the self-appointed leader, barked, "Sir, step away from your vehicle. You're under investigation for HOA violations and property obstruction." Property obstruction? I almost laughed. But their hands hovered over their hips like they were trying to play pretend cops for a YouTube video. The problem was, they were serious. I noticed the trembling kid behind them with a clipboard, maybe 19, scared out of his mind. And behind him, at the edge of the driveway, stood Karen McConnell, the HOA president herself, arms crossed, watching like a vulture. Her smile said everything. This wasn't about a rule violation. This was personal. The fake officers took a step closer. My dog growled. I stayed still, eyes cold. "Gentlemen," I said calmly, "before you make your next move, you might want to verify who you're trying to arrest." The breeze went silent. Even the sprinklers seemed to pause. Somewhere deep inside, I felt that familiar adrenaline hum I hadn't felt in years. You can tell when evil wears a badge. It doesn't smell like authority, it smells like fear. That morning, the air was calm, the kind of suburban quiet where every sound carries. You could hear sprinklers ticking on lawns, a leaf blower whining in the distance, and the faint echo of hammers from a new house down the hill. My wife, Elena, was in the kitchen brewing her second cup of coffee, barefoot, hair tied back, her mind already on her morning class, the one where she trained Navy SEAL recruits in close-quarters combat. I was on the porch, fixing the loose railing that the HOA had reminded me about 3 times already. Their tone had been unusually sharp lately, letters about non-compliance, unsanctioned exterior paint, even a threat of fines. Still, nothing prepared me for what rolled up our driveway that day. 2 men in dark uniforms stepped out of an unmarked black SUV. Their badges glinted under the sun, but not quite right. No department name. No patch. No unit number. Just cold metal and arrogance. "Sir," one said, "we're here regarding a community complaint filed through your HOA. We need to inspect the property immediately." I blinked. Under what authority? He flashed the badge again, faster this time, like a magician's trick. "We're with county enforcement." Behind him, the other one was already circling my truck, jotting something down. I felt my stomach tighten, not from fear, but from instinct. I'd served long enough to recognize posturing when I saw it. These weren't cops. Elena appeared at the door, calm as ever. She didn't say a word, just observed, her eyes narrowing slightly. Then one of the men stepped forward, hand on his holster. "Ma'am, we need you to step inside. For your safety." That's when I noticed it, the HOA logo on a clipboard he was trying to hide behind his arm. My heart sank. They weren't law enforcement. They were hired intimidation, sent by our own homeowners association. Elena glanced at me, silent communication flashing between us. I knew that look. The one that said, "Let's see how far they're willing to go." The wind picked up. The chimes rattled softly. And in that stillness, I felt something shift, the beginning of a storm neither of them saw coming. Elena didn't flinch when the fake officers tried stepping closer. She simply crossed her arms and said, "If you're county enforcement, then you won't mind if I call your supervisor." The taller one stiffened. "That won't be necessary, ma'am." Elena smiled faintly. "Then it won't be a problem either." She pulled out her phone. The man's tone cracked. "Put that down, ma'am." That's a direct, but she was already recording. Within seconds, their false confidence began to unravel. One of them mumbled something about mistaken address, and they backed off toward the SUV. The tires screeched as they sped away, leaving dust swirling in their place. For a moment, the only sound was the faint bubbling of coffee still brewing inside. I turned to Elena. "You okay?" She didn't answer right away. She walked to the edge of the driveway, her sharp eyes studying the tire tracks. "They weren't improvising," she said quietly. "They had a plan. They expected you to be gone and me to panic." Her voice was calm, but her jaw was tight. And someone wanted that panic on camera. That's when it hit me, the little HOA drone we'd seen hovering near our yard for days. I'd thought it was a surveyor's tool. Maybe not. That night, Elena sat at her desk with her laptop open, digging through county databases. She had a background in threat analysis before she started training SEALs, so digital forensics wasn't new to her. I watched her face glow in the screen light as she traced property records, emails, and vendor lists. "Here," she murmured, spinning the laptop toward me. It was a private contract invoice, security services hired by the Lakewood Oaks HOA board, approved by their president, Janet Hollins. The same Karen who'd once fined us $250 for having our flagpole an inch too tall. But what made my stomach turn was the description line on the invoice: Community Compliance Inspection and Intervention, Authorized Visual Documentation. Intervention? I said. That's not security work. That's intimidation. Elena nodded. And the fake badges? Someone wanted this to look official. We decided to play it cool. I kept repairing the railing, mowing the lawn, waving at neighbors. Elena kept training, pretending nothing had happened. But quietly, she installed a hidden camera under the porch awning and another inside the front window facing the street. 3 nights later, at 1:14 a.m., the camera caught motion. 2 figures in hoodies. Same SUV. Same fake badges. They crept toward the porch light, whispering, then one held up a phone, recording through our living room window. Elena, awake before I was, watched from the hallway shadows, silent as a cat. The next morning, she showed me the footage. They weren't just bluffing. They're collecting evidence to build a fake case. Probably to make us look like aggressors or rule violators. By noon, we received an official HOA complaint notice in the mail, dated before that night's footage. The charge, obstruction and verbal threat to enforcement personnel. It was a setup. A full-blown frame job. I felt anger rise, but Elena placed a hand on my shoulder. "Let them think they're winning," she said. "Bullies make mistakes when they believe you're scared." That afternoon, she called an old friend, Commander Briggs, her former SEAL training director. Within hours, a quiet chain of favors began moving behind the scenes. Meanwhile, the HOA board posted a community bulletin. Residents are reminded that cooperation with compliance enforcement ensures the safety and harmony of Lakewood Oaks. A photo was attached, our house blurred in the background, with a caption implying we'd refused inspection. The comments section below was filled with judgment from neighbors. Figures. Always thought they were trouble. People like that ruin good communities. I hope the board teaches them a lesson. Elena just smirked. Perfect, she said. They've gone public. That night, she created a new folder labeled Operation Reflection on her desktop. Inside it, she stored every recording, timestamp, and document. She drafted a letter to the county sheriff's office, not accusing anyone yet, just requesting verification of the officers who visited. She sent a copy to the local news tip line too. Then she sat back and whispered, almost to herself, if they want a show, let's give them one, but we'll control the stage. The next morning, another black SUV appeared, but this time, Elena was ready. Hidden cameras, microphones, live backup on standby. She looked out through the blinds, her voice calm and precise. Round 2. And as the SUV door opened, sunlight gleaming on another fake badge, the real operation quietly began. The next day dawned warm and still, that eerie calm before the air itself seems to hold its breath. I sat at the dining table, pretending to read the paper, but my eyes were fixed on the live feed from our porch camera. The same black SUV rolled in, slow this time, as if it owned the driveway. Out stepped the two men again, fake cops, same blank badges, but now joined by a third figure, Janet Hollins, the HOA president herself. Her sharp sunglasses reflected the morning light, her lips pressed into a self-satisfied smirk. She spoke with the smug confidence of someone who believed she could never be touched. You're refusing compliance inspections. This is your final warning, she said. I stood there silently, letting her words hang in the air. Elena appeared behind me, phone in hand. Actually, she said, stepping forward, I think this is your final warning, Janet. Janet blinked, thrown off by the calm in her voice. Elena gestured to the porch light camera. Smile. You're live. Janet's expression twitched. Excuse me? Elena tapped her phone screen, and the feed switched to a nearby laptop showing the live broadcast. The fake officers froze as their own faces appeared on screen, recorded from 3 different angles. You've been impersonating law enforcement, Elena said evenly. That's a felony. And it's all been documented. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then the taller man barked, turned that off, and took a step forward, but before he could, 2 SUVs rolled into view from the street below. This time, real law enforcement. Sheriff's deputies stepped out, their actual badges gleaming under the morning sun. One of them nodded toward Elena. Ma'am, we got your message. You said they'd be back? Elena smiled slightly. Right on schedule. The HOA president's confidence crumbled. This is outrageous. They were assisting the board under lawful, the deputy cut her off. Ma'am, these men are not registered with any enforcement division. Their vehicle plates trace to a private contractor out of state. We'll be taking them in for questioning. Janet's face went pale. As the deputies began reading the fake officers their rights, one tried to speak up. We were told this was sanctioned by the HOA board. And just like that, the entire illusion shattered. I watched Janet's jaw tighten as realization set in. The woman who'd built her little empire of neighborhood control was now standing in her own trap, a web she'd spun too wide. The deputies confiscated the fake badges, radios, even their vehicle's dash cam. One officer turned to Elena. "You said you've got footage of the first visit too?" Elena nodded. "Everything. With timestamps and HOA correspondence to match." Janet's voice cracked. "You'll regret this, Elena. You don't know who you're dealing with." Elena tilted her head slightly, that unshakable calm never fading. "I think I do. You're someone who mistakes fear for respect." Janet stormed off toward her car, phone pressed to her ear, muttering to someone, likely her lawyer. When the deputies left, I thought that might be the end of it. But that evening, another letter appeared in our mailbox. It wasn't from the HOA. It was from the county attorney's office. Apparently, Janet had filed a formal complaint accusing us of harassment and defamation, using her own twisted narrative to paint herself as the victim. Elena read the letter, exhaled slowly, and then smiled in that quiet, dangerous way she did when she'd already thought 10 steps ahead. "Good," she said softly. "Now it's all on record. Time to finish this in public." That night, she opened her Operation Reflection folder again and began drafting a detailed report, a timeline of every event, video links, signed HOA memos, and the invoice for the fake cops. But this time, she copied 3 recipients: the county sheriff's office, the state licensing bureau for private security, and Channel 8 news investigations. She pressed send. Outside, the night breeze rustled the trees, and a single porch light flickered on across the street, Janet's house. We watched from our window as her blinds closed. For the first time, she looked afraid. The next morning began like nothing had happened, sunlight spilling through clean windows, birds cutting through the calm. But beneath that calm, something electric hummed. Elena sat at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, watching the morning news. Then it happened. The anchor's voice sharpened mid-segment. "Breaking news. A local homeowners association in Lakewood Oaks is under investigation after allegations of hiring unlicensed security personnel who impersonated police officers. Sources say the operation may have been used to intimidate residents." They showed blurred footage, the exact porch camera video Elena had submitted. The men's faces were obscured, but the black SUV and the HOA logo on the clipboard were unmistakable. I looked at Elena. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just whispered, "Round 2 complete." That afternoon, the neighborhood group chat exploded. "Mark from Lot 42, is this about our HOA? Linda, treasurer, don't spread rumors. Janet said it's a misunderstanding. Rita, I saw those same guys near my fence last week. This isn't a rumor." And just like that, the tide began to shift. Janet tried damage control, sending an official email to all residents: "Please disregard sensationalized media. The HOA remains committed to safety and order." But the confidence that once filled her messages was gone. The subject line read "Urgent Community Trust Notice," and trust was the one thing she no longer had. Within hours, Channel 8 released a follow-up clip, a still shot of the invoice Elena had uncovered. The caption read, "Lakewood Oaks HOA authorized private enforcement under the president's signature." That signature was Janet's. By evening, neighbors were gathering in driveways, whispering in small circles, pointing toward Janet's house. For years, she'd ruled the HOA like a self-appointed queen, barking fines, threats, and public shaming. Now, her kingdom was cracking. Meanwhile, Elena wasn't done. She drafted one more email, this time addressed directly to the HOA board. It was calm, factual, and devastatingly polite. "Dear board members, as you may be aware, recent events have drawn attention to actions authorized under President Holland's leadership. Enclosed are documents, timestamps, and communication logs showing her approval of illegal impersonation and harassment. For transparency, I've included local authorities in CC. I trust you'll want to distance yourselves promptly before the next phase of the investigation becomes public record. Respectfully, Elena Foster. Within 30 minutes, replies began pouring in, panicked, defensive, fractured. Linda, treasurer, we didn't know she authorized that. We thought they were licensed contractors. Greg, secretary, we should hold an emergency vote to suspend Janet pending investigation. Janet, no one is voting on anything without legal counsel. The thread devolved into chaos. Elena just sat back, reading each message as it came in, sipping her tea like a woman who had already won. 2 days later, the board announced an emergency community meeting at the clubhouse. Elena and I arrived early. The air buzzed with murmurs and tension. Neighbors we'd barely spoken to before nodded at us, some embarrassed, others grateful. Janet stood at the front of the room, pale but defiant. These accusations are false, she began, her voice shaking slightly. The board acted under lawful procedure, but she stopped mid-sentence when Channel 8's camera crew entered the room. The county investigator followed close behind, flashing a real badge. Ma'am, we're here as part of an ongoing inquiry into unauthorized security operations and misuse of HOA funds. You could have heard a pin drop. Elena leaned to me and whispered, Public Accountability, Phase 3. The investigator handed Janet a document. You're required to provide all financial records and contractor communications. Immediately. Janet's face went white. This is outrageous. Elena stepped forward, her voice calm, carrying across the room. What's outrageous is pretending to enforce law while breaking it. You could have resolved a property issue with a phone call. Instead, you brought fake cops to my door. The crowd murmured in agreement. Even the board members averted their eyes from Janet. The investigator added quietly, Ma'am, impersonating law enforcement carries prison time. I suggest cooperation. Janet tried to speak, but her words collapsed under the weight of silence. She turned, trembling, and walked out, past cameras, neighbors, and the very community she once controlled. That night, Elena and I sat on our porch again. The same wind that carried threats weeks ago now felt clean, almost peaceful. Elena glanced at her laptop. The investigation will handle the rest, she said softly. I nodded, watching porch lights flicker across the neighborhood, one by one, like candles of relief. Still, she wasn't smiling. Justice isn't revenge, she murmured. It's balance. Then her phone buzzed. It was a message from a Channel 8 reporter. Elena, can we quote you for tomorrow's story? She typed back one line, sure. Just right, we don't train to fight. We train to stand our ground the right way. The following week, Lakewood Oaks didn't sound the same. No lawn mowers. No neighborly chatter. Just quiet, the kind that comes when people realize they've been living under someone's thumb and the spell is finally breaking. News vans lined the street by mid-morning. Channel 8's report had gone viral overnight, HOA president under investigation for fraud, harassment, and impersonation scheme. They'd named Janet Hollins publicly now. The headline photo showed her looking stiff and cornered outside the courthouse, her signature sunglasses gone. Inside, Elena sat beside me at the hearing bench, calm and composed. She wasn't there for revenge, she was there for closure. The county investigator presented his findings first. Mrs. Hollins authorized unlicensed personnel to conduct enforcement operations under false pretenses. Funds for these activities were drawn from HOA maintenance dues without board consent. Murmurs filled the room. He continued, in addition, a falsified complaint letter was created to justify the initial inspection at the Foster residence. That was us. Then the video played, our porch camera footage, time-stamped and clear. The fake officers. The fake badges. Janet's own face visible in the SUV reflection as she supervised from the curb. When the clip ended, the silence was absolute. Even the judge looked stunned. Janet's lawyer rose weakly. Your Honor, my client believed she was acting within her administrative rights to ensure community safety. Elena spoke softly but firmly from our side of the room. Your client impersonated law enforcement, trespassed on private property, and attempted to fabricate evidence. The judge turned toward Janet. Do you have anything to say? Janet's lips trembled. I was just trying to maintain order. They refused compliance. I needed cooperation. The judge's voice was measured. Order does not come from fear, Mrs. Hollins. It comes from trust. And you destroyed that. The gavel came down, echoing like thunder. Case referred to the district attorney for criminal review. HOA to be placed under temporary state supervision. The room erupted, board members whispering, residents gasping. Janet sank into her chair, pale and defeated. That night, the neighborhood looked different. People gathered in driveways again, but this time to talk, not whisper. Kids played on lawns that had once been too disruptive. Flags waved proudly again. One by one, neighbors came to our porch to thank us. A retired vet from down the street, a young couple who'd almost sold their house because of the harassment, even Linda, the treasurer who'd once sided with Janet. I'm sorry, she said, eyes glossy. We were afraid of her. We all were. Elena smiled kindly. Fear only lasts until someone stands still long enough to face it. The following morning, Channel 8 aired a final follow-up segment. The anchor spoke over images of our calm, sunny neighborhood. In a stunning turn, the Lakewood Oaks HOA president has resigned pending criminal charges. Sources confirm multiple residents plan to file civil suits. But one resident, the woman targeted in the fake enforcement operation, has chosen a different path. They cut to a short interview clip with Elena, standing on our front porch, the same place everything began. I don't want anyone punished beyond what's fair, she said. I just want people to remember that power without empathy isn't leadership, it's weakness. The clip ended with her walking her dog down the driveway, the neighborhood quiet and bright. The video spread online, millions of views, thousands of comments. The HOA seal wife became a viral nickname, half admiring, half legendary. But justice still had one poetic twist left. 2 weeks later, we received a certified letter from the county assessor's office. It was about an auction notice. Apparently, Janet had used HOA funds to pay for security services, and when those payments were reversed, she defaulted on personal property taxes for her rental home, located right across the street from ours. Elena raised an eyebrow, reading the notice. Looks like karma works fast when paperwork's involved. The county seized the property and scheduled it for auction. 3 months later, we bought it, legally, quietly, and for half its value. Elena never gloated. She simply turned the house into something better, a neighborhood wellness center, free self-defense workshops, stress relief classes, and community events. She even hung a sign by the door that read, "Strength belongs to everyone." A year later, Lakewood Oaks was unrecognizable. The HOA had been restructured under new leadership. No fines without fair hearings. No secret surveillance. No intimidation. Sometimes, I'd see Janet driving past in an old sedan, no makeup, no sunglasses, no entourage. She'd slow near the center, maybe curious, maybe ashamed. Elena never looked her way. She just kept instructing the next class, steady, focused, powerful. The same woman who once stood frozen at the sight of fake badges now stood surrounded by laughter, movement, and peace. When someone once asked Elena how she managed to stay so calm through it all, she smiled and said, "Because calm isn't weakness. It's control. And control is how you win without fighting." A year after everything ended, our mornings finally sounded like mornings again. Birds. Wind. Distant laughter. No knocks, no fake badges, no fear hiding behind rules. Sometimes I still catch myself listening, half expecting the crunch of tires on the driveway or the echo of that first demand for inspection. But what I hear instead is life returning to normal. Elena's wellness center became the heart of the community. The same neighbors who once avoided us now waved every morning, some stopping by just to talk. She never mentioned the investigation, never boasted about what she'd done. She didn't have to. Everyone knew. There was a quiet grace to her justice, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that simply restores what's right. One evening, while closing up the center, a teenager from the block asked her, "Mrs. Foster, were you scared that day? When they came?" Elena smiled. "Of course. Fear's natural. The trick is to let it pass through you, not control you." Then she paused, looking out toward the lake where the sun was melting into gold. Most people think strength is about what you can take down. It's really about what you can stand up to, without becoming like them. That night, as we sat on our porch again, the same porch where it all began, she leaned against me and whispered, "It's funny. They sent fear to our door, and it walked away learning discipline." The chimes rattled softly in the breeze. The stars came out one by one, clear and steady. Sometimes, peace doesn't arrive with fanfare. It just slips in quietly when the noise is gone, when the people who tried to control you have nothing left to say. Elena taught this neighborhood something powerful, that order without empathy collapses, and that justice, when done right, doesn't humiliate. It heals. I looked at her and smiled. "You really turned the HOA's war into a training exercise." She chuckled. "That's the secret. Don't fight back. Train forward." The porch light flickered once, warm and steady, as if the house itself was exhaling. And for the first time in a long time, Lakewood Oaks finally slept, not in fear, but in peace.
Hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of HOA secrets. Remember, behind every door, there's a story waiting to shock you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.